Alright, welcome. This is the homework solution for the practice number 4. This was in worksheet level 3. This was to estimate square roots and to compare the rational and irrational numbers. Okay? Alright, so practice 4 had some instructions that we're going to go over. The first part was to identify the two integers that the square root is in between. Integers are physically whole numbers. Locate the two integers on a number line. Then you're going to locate the approximate square root on that number line. Then you're going to finally estimate what that square root number as an irrational number. The format of the irrational number is going to be a decimal in this case. Alright, let's see number 1. On my right hand side, I have my list of my perfect squares up to 14. There should be 15. Okay. Number 1, it is the square root of 28. Right. Our first step is to identify the two square roots that it is in between. So 28 look like it is in between here, between 25 and 36. So we would say the square root of 28 is in between this, is less than the square root of 36 but greater than the square root of 25. That is getting from the chart. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 36 is 6. This is when you put it in as an integer. Okay. Once you put this in an integer, now you can locate that on a number line. You have 5 and 6. The square root of 25 goes right here because that becomes 5. The square root of 36 goes right here because it is 6. The square root of 28 exists somewhere right here. It's closer to the square root of 25. It's right here, approximately right here, close to square root of 25. So we would say the square root of 28 is roughly 5.3. Exact number would be 5.29. There you go. The next one, 57. Okay, 51. The square root of 51 for number 2. The square root of 51 exists between 7 and 8. Right? So you're going to identify the two integers that the square root is in between. We would say the square root of 51 is less than the square root of 64, but greater than the square root of 49. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 64 is 8. You're going to locate the two integers on a number line. Square root of 49 goes right here on 7. The square root of 64 goes here on 8 because that is what it is in its integer form. The square root of 51 exists somewhere right here because it's closer to the square root of 49. So it's roughly 7.14. 7.1 or 7.2 would be a valid answer. Okay? Because again, it is closer to the 7. It is closer to the square root of 49. Number 3. The square root of 22. The square root of 22, you're going to identify the two integers that the square root is in between. It is less than the square root of 25, but greater than the square root of 16. Because the square root of 22 has to be between square root of 25 and square root of 26. It's in between right here. What is the square root of 16? 4. What is the square root of 25? It's 5. You want to locate the two integers on a number line. Here's your 4, here's your 5. The square root of 16 here is on 4. The square root of 25 here is on 5. The square root of 22 is closer to the square root of 25 right here. So you would say it's around 4.7, 4.8. Because again, it is closer to the square root of 25. That's where it is. 4. The square root of 39. You want to identify the two integers that the square root is in between. It is less than the square root of 49, but greater than the square root of 36. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 49 is 7. So we would say that the square root of 39 exists in between the two integers of less than 7, but greater than 6. You want to locate the two integers on the number line. Here's our 6, here's our 7. The square root of 36 exists here on 6. The square root of 49 exists on 7. Square root of 39 is closer to the square root of 36, so we place it right roughly around there. We could estimate that spot as 6.27 as our irrational number. Let's look at 5 now. The square root of 27. Identify the two integers that the square root is in between. It is in between the square root of 36 and the square root of 25. We would say the square root of 27 is less than the square root of 36, but greater than the square root of 25. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 25 is 5. You want to locate those two integers on a number line. The square root of 25 exists here on 5. The square root of 36 exists on 6. The square root of 27 is closer to the square root of 25, so we place it roughly right there. We estimate its irrational number as roughly 5.2 or 5.3. Exact answer is 5.19. Let's look at 6. The square root of 62. Identify the two integers that the square root is in between. Let's take a look. It looks like it's 49 and 64. We would say the square root of 62 exists less than the square root of 64, but greater than the square root of 49. Square root of 64 is 8. The square root of 49 is 7. You want to locate the two integers on a number line. Square root of 49 exists here on 7. The square root of 64 exists here on 8. 62 exists closer to the square root of 64. You would estimate the square root of 62 is roughly around 7.8 or 7.9. It's very close to the square root of 64. Let's look at 7. The square root of 43. The square root of 43. We're going to identify the two integers that the square root is in between. It exists in between the square root of 49, less than the square root of 49, and greater than the square root of 36. The square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 36 is 6. We would say the square root of 49 exists less than 7, but greater than 6. You want to locate the two integers on a number line. Square root of, that should be 36 here, and that should be 49. Sorry. And this should be 43. Okay? But it's roughly around 6.56. Again, I got these numbers wrong. This is 36, and that's 49. Okay? Sorry about that. And lastly, 8. Square root of 90. You're going to identify the two integers that the square root is in between. The square root of 90 exists in between less than the square root of 100 but greater than the square root of 81. Square root 81, square root of 100. 90 is in between. Square root of 100 is 10. The square root of 81 is 9. Locate those two integers on the number line. Again, I didn't change this. This should be the square root of 81. This should be the square root of 100. This should be roughly around square root of 90. And it becomes 9.49, right? Roughly in the middle. Again, I kind of messed this up. This should be the square root of 81. That should be the square root of 100. Okay? But there you go. Those are all your homework solutions for practice 4.